The room goes silent, the kind of silence that presses against your chest. Simon leans forward, squints, and mutters the words no one ever wants to hear. This is impossible. Before I tell you why he said that, stay with me until the very end of this story, because what happens next will change the way you see talent, faith, and second chances. And if stories like this move you even a little, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more real, inspiring journeys like this to you. His name is Miguel, though back home in a small coastal town in the Philippines, everyone just called him Elvis. Not because he asked them to, but because every time he sang, something uncanny happened. The neighbors would stop walking. Children would sit on the steps, wide-eyed. Old men would close their eyes and smile, remembering younger days. Miguel didn't grow up on big stages or fancy studios. He grew up with power outages, cracked mirrors, and a second-hand karaoke machine his father fixed again and again with tape and hope. Miguel's father was a jeepney driver who loved Elvis Presley more than anything in the world. On long nights when money was short, he would sing Elvis songs to keep his spirits up. When Miguel was 7, his father taught him his first song. Miguel didn't understand the English words, but he understood the feeling. That deep, aching loneliness mixed with pride and love. Singing became their bond, their escape from reality. Then reality hit hard. Miguel's father fell ill, and medical bills piled up faster than they could pay them. The jeepney was sold. The karaoke machine stopped working for good. Miguel started working after school, helping his mother sell food at the market. Dreams were quietly packed away, like costumes stored in a box that might never be opened again. Years passed. Miguel grew older, responsibilities heavier. He sang less, only to himself, usually late at night when everyone else was asleep. People told him to be realistic. Singing doesn't feed a family. Dreams don't pay rent. And slowly, he began to believe them. One evening, while scrolling through his phone, Miguel saw a clip from a global talent show. Bright lights. Huge stage. Judges who could make or break lives with a single sentence. He laughed bitterly. "That's not for people like me," he whispered. But his mother, who had been listening from the doorway, said something that changed everything. "Your father used to say Elvis made him feel like anything was possible. Maybe you can do the same for someone else." The decision to audition wasn't brave at first. It was terrifying. Miguel borrowed money, sold personal belongings, and boarded a plane for the first time in his life. At the audition venue, surrounded by thousands of confident singers, he almost turned back. He felt small, invisible, out of place. His accent. His clothes. His shaking hands. Everything told him he didn't belong. When his number was called, his legs felt numb. He walked onto the stage, lights blinding, heart pounding so loud he was sure the judges could hear it. Simon barely looked up. Another contestant. Another hopeful dreamer. Miguel introduced himself, voice trembling. Simon asked why he was there. Miguel paused, swallowed hard, and said, "Because my father believed in this voice, even when the world didn't." There was a beat of silence. Then the music started. The first note changed everything. It wasn't just that he sounded like Elvis. It was that he felt like Elvis. The pain, the longing, the fire, it poured out of him. His voice filled the room, rich and raw, carrying decades of emotion far beyond his years. The audience froze. One judge's eyes widened. Another covered their mouth in disbelief. Simon slowly looked up. By the chorus, people were crying. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Miguel wasn't performing to impress. He was singing for his father, for his mother, for every person who had ever been told their dreams were too big for their circumstances. When the song ended, the room exploded in applause. Miguel stood there, stunned, tears streaming down his face. He hadn't planned on crying. He hadn't planned on surviving the moment at all. Simon leaned forward, shook his head, and said the words heard around the world, "This is impossible." Not as an insult, but as awe. "I've heard Elvis impersonators my whole life. But this isn't an impersonation. This is a resurrection. Miguel advanced through the competition, facing new challenges at every step. Doubt crept back in. Could he really keep up? Was he just a one-time surprise? Online critics mocked his accent. Others said he was only famous because of his story. The pressure nearly crushed him. Before the final performance, Miguel visited a quiet room backstage. He took out a small, worn photo of his father. "I'm scared," he whispered. "But I'm still singing." That night, he didn't just sing. He transformed. The performance wasn't about Elvis anymore. It was about Miguel. His journey. His pain. His hope. When the final note rang out, the audience stood as one. Simon stood too. Win or lose, Miguel had already changed his life. He returned home not just as Filipino Elvis, but as proof that talent knows no borders, and dreams don't expire because of where you start. Today, Miguel uses his platform to help young artists back home, funding music programs and reminding them that their voices matter. He still sings Elvis, but now, he sings his own songs too. So if you're watching this and thinking your dream is impossible, remember Miguel. Remember the silence before that first note. And remember that sometimes, the world only needs one song to change its mind. If this story moved you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. You never know who might need to hear the next story we tell. The moment Simon frowned and whispered, "This is impossible," millions of people leaned closer to their screens. But before you decide whether this story ends in victory or heartbreak, stay with me until the very last moment, because what happens at the end is exactly why stories like this deserve to be told. And if you believe hidden talent deserves a spotlight, tap like and subscribe right now. It truly helps this channel bring voices like his to the world. Long before the lights, before the judges, before the stunned silence, there was a boy standing barefoot on a concrete floor, singing to an empty room. His name was Rafael, born in a crowded barangay in the Philippines where dreams were often softer than survival. Music wasn't a career there, it was comfort. It was something you turned to when the rain leaked through the roof or when dinner was just rice and salt. Rafael learned to sing not from lessons, but from listening. His uncle played old Elvis Presley records on a scratched-up player that crackled more than it sang. Yet to Rafael, that voice sounded like freedom. Strong. Confident. Unafraid. When Rafael sang along, neighbors would joke, "You sound like Elvis." At first, he laughed it off. Later, it became the only compliment he truly believed. Life, however, had other plans. Rafael's mother worked overseas. His father passed away early. By 16, Rafael had quit school to support his younger siblings. Construction sites replaced classrooms. Calloused hands replaced notebooks. Singing was reduced to quiet moments alone, humming melodies to drown out exhaustion. Years later, one video changed everything. A friend sent him a clip from a global talent show with a simple message, "This could be you." Rafael watched it over and over, heart pounding. He wanted to believe it, but fear spoke louder. He was too old. Too poor. Too late. One night, after a 14-hour shift, Rafael sang an Elvis song into his phone and uploaded it online without telling anyone. He expected nothing. The next morning, the video had thousands of views. Then millions. Comments flooded in from around the world, all saying the same thing: "You need to audition." Getting there felt impossible. Passports, flights, auditions, it all cost money he didn't have. The community stepped in. Coins. Small bills. Faith. People who barely had enough gave anyway, because his voice reminded them of hope. On audition day, Rafael stood backstage shaking. He felt like a mistake waiting to happen. The stage looked too big. The judges looked unreachable. Simon barely smiled. "What will you sing?" Simon asked. Rafael took a breath and said quietly, "A song that saved me." The music began, and something ancient and powerful poured out of him. It wasn't just imitation. It was soul. Years of sacrifice echoed in every note. His voice didn't just fill the room, it The second Simon opened his mouth and said, "This is impossible," time seemed to freeze, but what led to that moment is a story far bigger than a single audition. Stay with me until the end, because the final seconds of this journey are the reason millions couldn't stop watching. And if stories about impossible dreams becoming real inspire you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another one. Before the world ever called him the Filipino Elvis, his name was Daniel. He lived in a narrow alley where laughter echoed louder than opportunity. His home was small, the walls thin, but music somehow found space to grow. Daniel's grandmother raised him, and every Sunday morning she played old vinyl records while cleaning the house. Elvis Presley's voice floated through the room like a visitor from another world, confident, powerful, fearless. Daniel didn't understand the words at first, but he understood the emotion. When he sang along, his grandmother would stop what she was doing and just listen, smiling quietly as if she already knew something the world didn't. Daniel's childhood wasn't easy. School was interrupted by hunger. Dreams were interrupted by responsibility. When his grandmother became ill, Daniel took whatever work he could find, loading trucks, cleaning shops, delivering goods under the burning sun. Singing became something private, almost secret. He sang while walking home late at night, pretending the empty streets were his audience. People told him he sounded like Elvis, but Daniel never saw it as a gift. It felt like a reminder of a life he could never have. Stages were for rich kids. Dreams were for people with safety nets. He had neither. One evening, a local bar owner heard Daniel singing while closing up and asked him to perform inside. Daniel was terrified. His hands shook. His voice cracked at first. But as the song went on, something happened. The noise died down. Conversations stopped. Even the clinking of glasses faded. For the first time, Daniel saw what his voice could do to people. For the first time, he wondered, what if? That question followed him for years. Then one day, he saw the audition announcement for a global talent show. He laughed out loud. Impossible. That word felt familiar. But the thought wouldn't leave him. Friends encouraged him. Strangers believed in him more than he believed in himself. Getting there took everything. Loans. Donations. Sleepless nights filled with doubt. Standing in line at the audition, surrounded by confident performers, Daniel almost walked away. He felt invisible. Ordinary. Unworthy. When he stepped onto the stage, the judges barely reacted. Simon looked skeptical. Another hopeful contestant. Another dream. Daniel introduced himself softly. When asked why he was there, he paused and said, "Because singing is the only time I feel like I matter." The music started. The first note didn't just surprise the room, it stunned it. His voice carried depth shaped by loss, strength shaped by survival. It wasn't perfect. It was honest. The resemblance to Elvis was uncanny, but what truly shocked everyone was the soul behind it. As the song built, the audience leaned in. Judges exchanged glances. Simon's expression changed, from doubt to disbelief. When the final note faded, silence hung heavy. Then Simon spoke. "This is impossible," he said slowly. "Because voices like this don't come from nowhere. And yet, here you are." Daniel couldn't hold back tears. Not because of the praise, but because for the first time, someone powerful believed him. The journey wasn't easy after that. Pressure mounted. Critics questioned his authenticity. Social media tore him apart and built him up in the same breath. There were moments he wanted to quit, moments he felt like an imposter standing on borrowed ground. But every time he stepped on stage, he remembered the alley. The empty streets. His grandmother's smile. In the end, Daniel didn't just sing like Elvis. He stood like himself. Strong. Unashamed. Unafraid. Whether he won or not stopped mattering. He had already done the impossible, he had been heard. Today, Daniel uses his voice to inspire others who feel unseen. He sings for those still walking home in the dark, humming dreams they're afraid to say out loud. And that's why this story matters. If you believe impossible dreams deserve a chance, hit like and subscribe to the channel. Because the next voice that shocks the world might be closer than you think. The audience didn't know it yet, but the moment Simon whispered, "This is impossible," history had already been made. Before I tell you why those words shook the world, stay with me until the very end, because the final moments of this story will remind you why believing in yourself can change everything. And if stories like this inspire you even a little, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us share more journeys that deserve to be heard. Long before the standing ovations and global headlines, there was a man named Joel, living quietly in a small Philippine town where life moved slowly and dreams moved even slower. Joel wasn't born into music royalty. He was born into responsibility. His childhood was filled with chores instead of toys, work instead of rest. His mother sold vegetables at dawn. His father took any job he could find. Music wasn't a plan, it was an accident. Joel discovered his voice by accident too. One night during a blackout, his uncle began singing Elvis Presley songs to pass the time. The candlelight flickered, shadows danced on the walls, and Joel joined in softly. Everyone froze. His uncle laughed nervously and said, "Do that again." Joel did. This time louder. This time braver. And something shifted in the room. From that night on, Joel sang whenever he could, at fiestas, at family gatherings, sometimes just to the walls of their tiny home. People started calling him Elvis, but Joel never believed it meant anything. Compliments didn't pay bills. Applause didn't buy rice. So he grew up, set the dream aside, and focused on surviving. Years passed. Joel worked long hours in a warehouse, lifting boxes until his back screamed. He sang quietly during breaks, just enough to remember who he used to be. Every now and then, someone would stop and listen. "You should audition," they'd say. Joel would smile and shake his head. Impossible felt safer than hope. Then one day, everything changed. His mother fell ill. Medical bills piled up. Fear returned, heavier than ever. One night, exhausted and desperate, Joel watched clips from a global talent show. Bright lights. Nervous contestants. Judges who looked impossible to impress. When an Elvis impersonator appeared on screen, Joel laughed bitterly. Then he cried. Because for the first time, he let himself ask, what if? The audition wasn't a bold decision. It was a last one. Joel borrowed money, sold his motorcycle, and traveled farther than he ever had in his life. Standing in line among thousands, he felt invisible. Younger singers. Better clothes. Louder confidence. Joel almost left. He told himself this was a mistake. When he stepped onto the stage, his heart nearly gave out. Simon looked unimpressed. Another audition. Another dream. What will you sing? Simon asked. Joel took a deep breath. A song that kept me alive, he said. The first note cut through the room like lightning. It wasn't just the sound, it was the weight behind it. Every sacrifice. Every sleepless night. Every time Joel chose survival over himself. His voice didn't imitate Elvis, it carried the same fire, the same ache, the same unbreakable spirit. The audience leaned forward. Judges stared in disbelief. Halfway through the song, people were crying without knowing why. Because they weren't hearing a performance, they were hearing a life. When the final note faded, silence took over. Simon shook his head slowly, eyes locked on Joel. This is impossible, he said. Because voices like this are once in a generation. And you've been hiding it. Joel broke down. Not because he advanced. Not because of fame. But because for the first time, the world saw him. The journey didn't get easier after that. Pressure followed. Critics doubted him. The label Filipino Elvis felt heavy. Some said he was only copying. Others said he'd never last. There were nights Joel wanted to quit, convinced he didn't belong. But every time he stepped on stage, he remembered where he came from. The blackout.